Hello, my name is Dreidan27.
And I'm Arcosia.
And we're going to be reading Chardonnay, a supernatural fanfic by TeamNoSleep. Today we're going to be reading chapters 1 and 2. Arcosia is going to be doing the narration, and Dreidan27 is going to be doing the voices.
Alright, here we go. Author's note. Hello, lovely. This is my first ever supernatural fanfic, and I'm super excited. This story doesn't really follow the supernatural plot, but takes place during Season 1. Constructive criticism and chapter ideas are always welcome, but please be nice. Without further ado, please enjoy. I do not own anything but Drew. Dean's point of view.
Sammy.
I stated, upon exiting the small bathroom of the run-down motel room we had booked for the night. My brother arched an eyebrow up in response, barely glancing at me over his computer.
I need a drink. So go get one,
Sam shrugged.
You've got the keys. Come on, nerd,
I said, closing the laptop on Sam.
You look like you could use one too.
Sam rolled his eyes, but didn't argue. He closed the door behind us and trailed behind me to my most prized possession, my baby, my 1967 Chevy Impala. Led Zeppelin's loving maid, She's Just a Woman, was vaguely heard under the sweet purr of the baby's engines. I flashed a grin in Sam's direction as he rolled his eyes and settled into his seat.
Chin up!
I exclaimed, giving Sam a light punch in the shoulder.
We're gonna go drink some beer and forget this whole day even happened. Alright, Dean,
Sam said, rolling his eyes again. I turned the volume up as the song changed to Ramble On. A few minutes later, we arrived at the bar. It was a beach-themed bar, making me feel like I was in Hawaii rather than California. It wasn't our usual bar scene, as it was a small indoor area for drinks with several tables and a dance floor outside next to the beach. But I figured it would be a good place to pick up chicks. Heaven knows Sammy and I could both use some action. Sam immediately seemed to perk up when the bartender handed us our beers. We stayed at the bar stools and drank. We had finished up a relatively easy hunt. It was simply a single ghost haunting a small house occupied by a small family. Ghosts were the easy part. Dealing with the people was hard. After managing to survive an overly talkative and nervous mother who demanded she come with us and her husband to get rid of the ghost, anyone would need a beer. Or four. A girl sighed as she sat down on the bar stool next to me. She set her clutch down on the table and sat silently, waiting for the bartender to finish up the orders of the people ahead of her. She was beautiful in a fierce and sexy way. She had dirty blonde hair that hung in the middle of her back in curls. Through the mirror, I could see her intense blue eyes as they watched her fiddling thumbs. She pursed her cherry red lipstick-covered lips as she looked at the bartender. She was dressed in a small, tight dress, my favorite, that accentuated her chest and went down to just past her butt. She was wearing small red heels that crisscrossed in a complicated pattern around her ankles.
Chardonnay,
I said. She looked at me.
Excuse me?
She asked with a slight southern drawl.
You look like a Chardonnay kind of girl.
I smirked as I took a sip of my beer.
Coke, actually.
She smirked back, looking up at the bartender when he walked over. He nodded when he heard and turned back to get a drink.
So tell me, Chardonnay.
I turned towards her. I heard Sam's amused scoff as he stood up to go who knows where.
The name's Drew,
she told me. A small, amused smile still spread across her face.
Dean,
I smiled, shaking her hand. Her soft skin was a sharp contrast to my rough, calloused hands.
So, Chardonnay, what's a pretty girl like you doing out here all by yourself?
She laughed lightly.
Just hoping some desperate guy will try hitting on me. Well, I hate to break it to you.
I grinned, taking another sip of my beer.
I'm not hitting on you.
Oh! She lifted an eyebrow. She took a sip of her Coke.
I just want to dance.
I smirked, holding out my hand. She let another light laugh and shook her head. She placed a $5 bill under her half-finished Coke and took my hand. I led her out to the small dance floor of the beach bar and brought her in close. .1 for Dean Winchester. We took a step and she stumbled a little.
Sorry,
she muttered, blushing.
Women usually don't fall for me until at least the second song.
I teased. She looked up at me. eyes wide and mouth open.
I'm not used to heels,
she exclaimed, stepping away from me. A smile tugged at her lips as I pulled her back into me.
We'll see about that.
I whispered in her ear. She leaned into me, the curves of her body melting into mine. Definitely gorgeously sexy. One song turned into multiple, and I quickly lost track of time. Not hard when the sexiest girl in the bar was dancing with me. Point 2, Dean.
What do you say we get out of here?
I whispered in her ear. A soft giggle escaped her lips.
And do what?
She whispered back, nipping lightly at my ear, which sent excited chills down my spine.
Whatever you want,
I answered a little louder this time.
Well, I hate to break it to you,
she pouted,
but I'm not that kind of girl.
She stepped away, trailing her fingers slowly along my arm. She bit her lips slightly and winked at me. I couldn't help but smile back. She walked away, her hips swaying.
It was nice to meet you, Dean,
she waved, only slightly turning back to look at me as she walked away. I laughed and shook my head. Point 1, Chardonnay. Drew's perspective. I walked away from Mr. Tall, Dark, and Handsome, extremely giddy. The way I acted surprised even me. With my boyfriend, every crush had never been so flirty or so teasing with any boy. It was the moment of confidence. Mama always said, with the right dress and heels, you can do anything. And at that moment, all I wanted to do was take off my heels and makeup and curl up in some sweats. But was he really into me? I thought, with a small smile tugging at my lips. For a split moment, I considered turning around and going back to the dance with Dean. But he was incredibly attractive and clearly wanted some action. He wouldn't have had a problem with finding another girl, and had probably already found one to woo. I sighed and continued to my car. It was only a 5-minute drive from the bar to my one-bedroom apartment. I hummed AC/DC's Highway to Hell as I entered my apartment and took off my heels. My feet thanked me. I wasn't used to wearing heels or dressing up. Being a girl was so difficult. I changed into leggings and a gray t-shirt, pulling my dirty blonde hair into a high ponytail. With a makeup wipe, I took off the red lipstick and mascara I was wearing. I quickly washed my face to remove the residue and walked into the kitchen. It was nearly 2 in the morning, but I was wide awake and hungry. I put some popcorn in the microwave and settled down into the couch, scrolling through my phone. Nearly 15 minutes later, a loud knock sounded from the door. It was enough to make me jump and spill popcorn all over the floor.
Jeez,
I muttered to myself. The knock sounded from the door again, louder this time.
Coming!
I answered quickly, wondering who would be knocking at my door so late. I opened the door, and a man I didn't recognize stood there.
Can I help you?
I asked slowly. He didn't answer, simply taking a step towards me.
Sir,
I said nervously.
What do you want?
He took another step. His eyes seemed to look pure black. Panicking, I threw the door closed, but the strange man held his arm out to keep the door from closing. I quickly ran to the counter where my keys were stashed and pulled out my pepper spray, spinning around to spray it directly into his eyes. He staggered back for a moment and shook his head and continued towards me. I backed away, trying to spray him again. He closed his eyes, but didn't stop. In a last desperate attempt, I threw the bottle at him and ran towards the front door. He was right on my heels up until the doorway, a solid 4 feet. Go me. He swooped me up in his arms, and I shrieked. He threw me over his shoulder, and I kicked wildly against him. I threw my fists against his back and squirmed as much as possible, hoping to at least loosen his grip on me. He was unfazed. Fear coursed through me as I struggled to accept that this could really be the end of me. A dark car pulled up in front of us, its bright headlights casting a long shadow on the ground below me. I screamed for help. Silently begging, this car brought my saviors. A gunshot went off, and an inhuman wail escaped the man's lips. He staggered back slightly, but continued to run. Another shot went off, and my captor halted abruptly. The sudden stop caused my still-in-motion head to pound against his shoulder blade. He threw me off of him, literally threw me off with strength I didn't know a human could possess, and into a large van. I grunted as I heard the collision of my body with metal and the large thud of my bones connecting with concrete. Another gunshot went off.
Exorcizamus te omnis immunda spiritus.
My captor's inhuman screech filled the night. I pulled my head up to see two silhouettes opposite the man who abducted me.
Omnis satanica potesta, omnis incurtio infernalis.
My kidnapper's head flew back as a thick black cloud left his screaming mouth. He fell limp. I screamed, covering my mouth quickly with my hand. Short, heavy breaths entered and exited my lungs with painful speed. The two figures walked towards me.
Stay away from me!
I whimpered, trying to pull myself away. My scraped palms and twisted ankle cried in protest. Figures.
We aren't going to hurt you,
The taller of the figures told me, holding his hands out.
You just killed that man!
I cried.
What was that? It wasn't a man.
The second figure said, his voice oddly familiar.
Then what was it?
I whimpered again, realizing the impact of the ground had also sprained.
It was a demon.
I scoffed.
You're crazy! Get away from here! I'll call the cops. You're hurt. Let us help you. I'm not letting you anywhere near me.
I hissed. I pulled myself up off the ground to prove I was fine. I took one step on my injured ankle and quickly fell over. One of my saviors / potential killers caught me before I could hit the ground.
Now, this is familiar, wouldn't you say so, Chardonnay?
He asked me.
Dean?
I asked, shooting a look up at him. I struggled against him.
Let me go! We aren't going to hurt you, I promise.
He said, helping to steady me on my feet.
He was going to kill you. We just kept him from doing that.
I looked over to the limp body on cement, sprawled out in unnatural angles. I kept a hand on Dean's arm. He was right. If they hadn't shown up, who knows what he would have done to me.
Thank you,
I said slowly.
I don't want you... Oh, fuck. I don't want to know what would have happened if you guys didn't save me. It's kind of what we do.
The other man shrugged.
I'm Sam. I'm Dean's brother. Thank you, Sam.
I told him. I tried to take a step, but my injured ankle gave out underneath me once again.
There's no way you're getting anywhere on your own.
Dean told me, wrapping an arm around my waist.
Come on. Wait, but I live right there.
I turned, pointing at my small apartment up from the street.
It's not safe for you there anymore.
Sam said.
There are more where that guy came from. Where am I supposed to go then? With us, you'll be safe.
Dean's guiding me to his car. Mama warned me about strangers. She told me to never get into a stranger's car. And despite every bit of reason screaming at me not to get in the car, somehow I felt safe. So I followed. Dean situated me in the back seat while he took the driver's seat, and Sam took the passenger's. I leaned forward and stuck my hand out to Sam.
I'm Drew. Nice to meet you,
I said, shaking his hand. I turned to Dean.
Your name really is Dean, right?
He smiled and nodded.
Now, why would I lie about that?
He chuckled.
Just trying to make friends with the men who abducted me second.
I sighed, leaning back into my seat. End of Chapter 1. Author's note. Once again, constructive criticism, chapter ideas, and case ideas are always welcome. Review, please. Smiley face. I hope you enjoyed. Much love, XX. Until next time. Chapter 1, written by TeamNoSleep.
And now, on to Chapter 2.
Yay!
So far, so good. What's going to happen next? I don't know.
Alright. Chapter 2. Author's note. Hi all. This is kind of a filler chapter, so it's a little slow, just to warn you, but I promise things will pick up next chapter. I just wanted to get this one up so I could focus on the upcoming chapters. Much love, XX. Enjoy. I do not own anything but Drew. Okay. Drew's point of view. Dean pulled up at the run-down motel a few minutes down the road from where I lived. He parked and went around to help me out of the car. I kept my arms folded across my chest when he offered a hand out.
Come on now, Char. I promise I won't bite.
Dean smirked.
I'd rather if you kill me in the car than a motel room. I like to keep it classy.
I retorted. Dean laughed.
I'm not going to kill you. You can trust me.
He extended his hand out further. I sighed and took his hand. I took 2 painful steps before Dean scooped me up in his arms and carried me into the motel room that Sam had already unlocked. Dean set me down on the bed and grabbed a duffel bag to set under my sprained ankle. Sam returned with a small bag of ice and draped it around my ankle. I subconsciously rolled out my wrist as I studied these 2 strangers.
So, thing 1 and thing 2.
I said. Sam and Dean both looked up at me.
How did you know I was in trouble? I have a radar for beautiful damsels in distress.
Dean winked. I blushed and Dean chuckled.
We were on our way back from the bar when we saw you in trouble.
Sam clarified.
We stopped to help. I appreciate it,
I told him.
Really, that guy was so creepy. He had one of the blackest eyes I've ever seen. It was so weird.
I absent-mindedly rubbed my arm.
That's because he was a demon.
I laughed nervously.
That is one crazy sense of humor you've got there. Demons aren't real.
Dean and Sam remained expressionless.
Demons aren't real.
I stated again. They stayed silent.
Right?
Sam sighed and took a seat on the edge of the bed. Dean sat down next to me. I settled back as they went into a long explanation about how everything I was terrified as a child was real.
Vampires?
I asked. They nodded.
Werewolves, ghosts, demons, everything?
They nodded again.
And you guys hunt them? That's our job. Saving people, hunting things, the family business.
Dean told me matter of fact.
What a life,
I said, too amazed to add any sarcasm.
Drew.
Sam started.
Can you think of any reason a demon may have been after you?
I shook my head.
I'm really at a loss,
I answered.
I'm real low profile. After my parents died, I moved into a 1-bedroom apartment and I've been working as a waitress at a small diner. Has anything unusual happened lately? Anyone acting strangely or someone showing up everywhere? Besides you 2?
I raised an eyebrow.
We aren't that bad.
Dean rolled his eyes playfully.
No, I suppose I could have worse-looking men kidnap me for my own safety.
I answered. Dean laughed and muttered something about how it was in my own best interest that I stayed. Like I had a choice, honestly.
If you don't mind me asking,
Sam said gently.
How long ago did your parents pass?
I scratched nervously at my arm.
It would have been about 3 years ago now.
I answered quietly. Sam and Dean muttered their apologies, something I had heard all too often, and we sat in uncomfortable silence.
Alright, pretty lady, why don't you get some shut-eye and we can continue this at a more reasonable hour?
Dean suggested, gesturing at the clock that read 3 a.m.
Where am I supposed to sleep? I can't go home.
I said slowly. Both Sam and Dean lifted an eyebrow at me.
You're already in a bed.
Dean chuckled. I shot a look at him.
Well, then where are you guys going to sleep?
There was only one more bed in the room, and there was no way 2 men as big as them would sleep in the same bed. Their size and their ego wouldn't allow it.
You know, ever since I met you in the bar, I've just been dying to get you in bed with me.
Dean murmured in my ear, his voice dropping to a deep, sexy purr that I didn't even know was possible.
Be a simple kind of man.
Yeah, totally.
And I told you, honey?
I laughed lightly, pushing him away in an attempt to mask my sudden racing heart and the butterflies in my stomach.
I'm not that kind of girl. Dean, stop being a jerk.
Sam rolled his eyes.
He won't try anything. If you really want, we'll kick him out to sleep in the car.
Dean shot a look at him and shot back that if anyone was sleeping in the car, it would be Sam.
It's okay.
I spoke up.
Just mind your manners, Dean. Keep it classy. A lady likes a gentleman. Yes, ma'am.
Dean smirked. I curled up in a ball under the covers, watching intently as Dean and Sam took turns in the bathroom getting ready for bed. Dean stood in front of me and seductively peeled off his shirt, exposing his defined abs. As much as I loved how he looked, I let out a little yelp and quickly covered my head with the blanket.
Yeah. Now, what's the matter, Chardonnay? Too much for you? I have a strict rule that states no stripping until at least the second date.
I shot back. Dean laughed and laid down next to me on the bed.
Can't wait.
He whispered in my ear. I turned to face the other way and pulled the blanket tight around my shoulders.
Good night, Dean,
Sam said as he turned off the light. He situated himself on the bed and continued.
Good night, Drew. Good night, Sam.
I answered.
Good night, gorgeous,
Dean said, trailing his fingers lightly against my side through the thick comforter. Goosebumps followed where his fingers left. I was determined to stay awake through the night. I was determined not to let my guard down. No way these strange men were going to catch me off guard. They had fallen asleep, their soft breathing the only sound in the otherwise silent motel room. My eyelids felt heavy, but there was no way I would give in. I was staying up, no matter what. Sunlight broke through the blinds, waking me up slowly. I snuggled deeper into the bed until memories of the night before came flooding back. My eyelids snapped open, and the first thing I saw was the outline of Sam's rather large body on the other bed. I looked to my left where Dean was still sound asleep. It wasn't a dream. I had really been kidnapped by a demon and taken to safety by two strangers. Slowly, I pulled the covers off of me, trying to avoid waking him up. I stirred slightly as I turned to get off the bed, but stayed asleep. I carefully put weight onto my injured ankle, grateful it had already healed a lot. With a slight limp, I hobbled to the bathroom and quietly closed the door behind me. I looked horrible. I looked like I'd been taken by a demon. I turned the faucet and splashed cold water against my face. I cupped my hand and patted water against the back of my neck. I leaned against the sink and took a deep breath. When I left the bathroom, Sam was already up and making his bed.
Good morning.
He smiled kindly.
How did you sleep? I feel like I didn't sleep at all.
I answered sheepishly.
It's only 8.
Sam answered.
We basically just napped.
Dean stirred and let out a soft groan.
Shut up, Sammy.
He whined.
Some of us are trying to sleep.
I laughed and rolled my eyes.
Let's go get a coffee,
Sam whispered to me. I nodded and started towards the front door. Noticing my limp, Sam walked up next to me and slipped an arm around my waist, supporting me out the door. He helped me into the Impala and walked around the car to drive. I gave him directions to the small diner I worked at.
Morning, Drew.
One of my coworkers smiled when she saw me.
Good morning, darling.
I smiled back, leading Sam to a booth. I ordered a coffee and blueberry pancakes, while Sam ordered a coffee, eggs, bacon, and toast.
I'm hungry. So, tell me about yourself,
I said, once our order was taken to the back.
What do you want to know? I want to know I can trust you. Dean and I hunt for a living. We travel across the U.S., keeping people safe from monsters. I still think it's so crazy these are real.
I muttered, looking down at my twiddling fingers.
Sometimes I do too,
Sam answered.
We were raised hunting. Our dad was a hunter, so it's always been our way of life. Sounds like a heck of a way to live. I pretty much hated it my whole life. I actually ended up at Stanford for a while. No way! What are you doing hunting? Why aren't you still there? My girlfriend was killed by a demon that killed my mom, and our dad went missing, so I went back to the life. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Sam shrugged. Quickly.
Could be worse, I guess. Still got Dean. So what about you? What's your...
I bit my lip to think.
I'm 21, work at this diner. I don't know, I'm not really that interesting. Dang, you're a baby.
Sam laughed. Our food came at that moment, and I hungrily took a bite of my pancake, too impatient to pour syrup over them.
Nuh-uh.
I exclaimed, with a mouthful. I quickly swallowed and continued.
How old are you guys? I'm 22.
Sam answered smugly.
Dean's 26. Oh my goodness, a whole year?
I rolled my eyes sarcastically.
Basically a grandpa. No, that's Dean.
Sam laughed. We continued on with the rest of our breakfast, making small talk. Just as I was taking my last bite, Sam's phone went off.
Yeah?
He answered, just before taking a large bite of eggs.
Dean, calm down. We just went for breakfast.
I got up to pay for breakfast. My coworkers all waved me off, stating this one was on them as long as I brought tall, dark, and handsome back round again. I laughed and thanked them, walking back to the booth where Sam was still on the phone.
All right, we'll be back in a few minutes,
he said, hanging up. We returned to the motel with a bag containing a box of eggs, sausage, and bacon, and a cup of steaming hot coffee for Dean.
There you are,
Dean exclaimed, taking the bag hungrily.
Well, good morning to you too,
I answered, slipping by him and into the room.
Chardonnay, you're even prettier in the light,
Dean smirked, stuffing his face with eggs. I blushed and turned to sit down on the bed.
So now what? Do I get to go home now? We'll take you back and make sure it's safe for you there,
Sam said.
Chances are there won't be a ton of demons looking around your apartment in broad daylight. But don't you worry your pretty little head.
Dean said between mouthfuls.
You've got armed escorts just in case. It's not the arms I'm worried about, Sonny.
I said, putting on my best Marty impression from Greece.
It's the hands.
Dean raised an eyebrow at me but continued eating his breakfast. He had finished his food at an almost alarming rate, and within 15 minutes we were back in the car and on the way back to my apartment.
What happened to that guy's body?
I asked when we pulled up to the empty driveway.
And his car? We had a few friends run clean up for us last night so we could make sure you were okay.
Dean answered. He put the car in park and helped me out of the back seat.
Well, this has been fun,
I said slowly as I strolled towards the front door.
I'd love to do it again, Chardonnay.
Dean smirked, brushing up against me.
Do what? Kidnap me or share a bed with me?
I teased.
I'm just waiting for the second date.
He winked. I quickly spun around to unlock the door so I wouldn't have to look at Sam's reaction. I let the boys into my apartment so they could survey the area and make sure it was safe. They gave me tips to demon-proof my house and also their number, just in case a monster decided to put me on its to-do list.
Sure you don't want to come along with us?
Dean asked.
I'm engaged.
I answered quickly.
Where's the ring?
He smirked.
I'm in school. No, you're not.
Sam's eyebrows pushed together in confusion. Clearly he wasn't getting that I was trying to come up with an excuse not to go anywhere.
I'll be just fine here.
I said.
Thanks for everything, really. Anytime, Chardonnay.
Dean answered, giving me a quick wink before he and Sam left. I huffed and fell into the couch.
What the hell?
End of Chapter 2, written by TeamNoSleep.
Voices by Dreidan27
and narration by Arcosia. TeamNoSleep is the author and creator of the character Drew. The characters of Sam and Dean and all other supernatural references are not intended to be copyright. This is just an awesome fan fiction with more chapters to come.
Note from us, we've only read chapters 1 and 2 at this point, so we don't even know what's going to happen next. So we are just as much suspense as you guys will be when you guys listen to this. Hope you guys liked it. Bye.